Time news on News First. I'm Chaturanga Hapwarachi. Before we head into the stories in detail, here are your headlines.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Petition filed with Supreme Court to invalidate cabinet. Petitioners say appointments have violated Constitution. Minister Welgamer calls for unity to implement common work plan.
මේ ජනාධිපති ක්‍රමයේ තිබ්බොත් අපිට තවත් 31ද අපි බෝ කරන්න. තවත් ඊළඟට තව 31ක් ආවොත් ඌත් මුළු පවුලම වට කරගත්තොත් මොකද කරන්නේ? එතකොට මොකද වෙන්නේ මේ රටට මොකද වෙන්නේ?
When will Sri Lanka receive gas?
ඉදිරි සති දෙක විතර ඇතුළත ගෑස් ගියත් අපිට අවම කරගන්න පුළුවන්කමක් ලැබෙයි.
Interim on fertilizer from India at a higher cost. A request to conduct an immediate investigation.
කවුද කියන එක මේවෙන් කොමිස් ගත්තේ කවුද කියන එක මේ සභාවට එලි කරන්න කියලා මම ගරු ඇමතුමාට කියනවා.
Indian Prime Minister Modi withdraws 3 farm laws.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Those were your headlines. Let's take a look at the local news first with our sign language interpreter Taraka Gabriel joining us. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa paid a visit to the Jayasree Mahabodhiya in Anuradhapura today.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa visited the chief incumbent of the Atmasthana, Venerable Dr. Pallegama Sirunivasa Thero. He later presented the Kiri Ahara Puja to the Sri Mahabodhiya. The President also engaged in a friendly discussion with the devotees at the premises. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa also visited the Sri Mahabodhiya in Anuradhapura this afternoon. The Prime Minister also visited the chief incumbent of the Atmasthana, Venerable Dr. Pallegama Sirunivasa Thero.
Secretary of the National Front of Professionals, Engineer Kapila Renuka Pereira, has filed a fundamental rights petition in the Supreme Court. He has alleged that the government has appointed more cabinet and state ministers than the amount permitted in the Constitution.
According to Article 20 of the Constitution, the number of members of the cabinet should be limited to 30 and the number of state ministers to 40. The petition, filed by Attorney-at-Law Darshana Veruduvage, states that the President of the country has failed to act in accordance with the Constitution of Sri Lanka, assigned to him by not acting accordingly. The petition further points out that the responsibility of safeguarding and nurturing the Constitution of the country is a major task of the President of the country. The petition names 82 people, including the Attorney General, the Prime Minister, the Cabinet and State Ministers, Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara and Secretary to the Ministry of Finance S.R. Atigala. The petitioner has pointed out to the Supreme Court that when considering the 2022 annual budget proposals and documents presented to Parliament by the present Minister of Finance, it was found that the annual expenditure of the government has increased by 525 billion rupees. The petitioner further alleges that the main reason for this is the appointment of Basil Rajapaksa as the current Minister of Finance and Namal Rajapaksa as the Minister in charge of Development. In addition, the petitioner has pointed out to the court that Chamal Rajapaksa, Namal Rajapaksa, Dilum Amunagama and Dr. Sudarshini Fernandepille have also been appointed as additional state ministers. Therefore, he requests the court to issue an order invalidating the 2 cabinet ministers and the 4 state ministers who have been appointed in violation of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. The petitioner has requested the court for an order to dissolve the present cabinet, which convened from the 7th of July 2021, and also pointed out that the president has violated the Constitution.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා ව්‍යවස්ථා බරපතල උල්ලංඝනය කර තිබෙනවා පෙන්වා දීලා තියෙනවා.
Speaking in Parliament today, Samagi Janabalawegaya MP Kumara Welgaman said all factions must work according to a common, united framework. He expressed these views during the second reading of the 2022 budget.
ඊ දෙනෙක් සාප කරනවා මේ ආණ්ඩුවට විරුද්ධව අද්දෙක.
How many people are cursing this government? They say that there is no fertilizer. Can't you provide them with some urea? Mr. Kumar, please give them urea. They will give money. Today a bag of urea is 10,000 rupees. People don't have tea fertilizer. The people feel this burden. Think about the Easter attacks. It is the Easter attack that comes around like this. Always remember, some things can avoid the law. Even though you can escape from the law, you cannot escape the wrath of God or the universe. You will be punished. That is why this government is going crazy. These things need to be said. The government has gone mad. If you ask people, they will say that the government is crazy. Nobody called J.R. Jayawardena crazy. Nobody called Chandrika Bandaranaike crazy. Nobody called Mahinda Rajapaksa crazy during his first tenure from 2005 to 2010. Today they say it without any fear. We did not pay the salaries to the bombers of the April 21st attacks. Sarath Fonseca always mentions this. It was this government that paid the attackers. I told him not to appoint him since he has not been in a Pradesha Sabha. Since he does not know how to rule a country. Maybe he can manage a part of the army, not the entire military. He left for the US as well. There are ministers who are more suitable than him. While he operated computers at filling stations, there are ministers with better experience here. Ministers who did their jobs with a backbone. Do any of them have positions today? Mahinda Rajapaksa brought in a random person. There were meetings at Minister G.L. Pirisa's house. I told Mahinda Rajapaksa not to appoint him. Give this chance to seniors. I asked him why did his father change the sides with SWRD Bandaranaike. When D.S. Senanaike died, SWRD Bandaranaike was the second most senior. He was not given the position. The then governor gave Dudley Senanaike, who was a junior, the opportunity. That is why SWRD Bandaranaike went to the opposition, leaving behind health and provincial council ministries. D.A. Rajapaksa joined him. Seniority must be given the opportunity. If you consider seniority, give the opportunity to Dinesh Gunawardena. Ask him whether I said it or not. He has experience. He is not insane.
ආන්න මං කිව්වද නැද්ද කියලා මෙතුමාට දුන්නා නම් මෙතුමාට අත්දැකීම් තියෙනවනේ මෙතුමාට පිස්සු නැහැ හරි අන්න බොරළුවට සිංහයාගේ පුතා හැබැයි දුන්නේ නැහැ නෑ මේක අපේ පවුලේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් කියලා.
He was not given the chance since it was a family matter. Now that family matter is in trouble. There was a meeting at Minister G.L. Pirisa's house. You can ask him. He is sitting in the front. The meeting was about getting the Prime Minister's post during the 52-day government. President Sirisena gave the PM position. Chamal Rajapaksa stood up and said not to take it. I said the same. Everyone else said take the Prime Minister's position. What was said after? They said everyone else is in favor. He said he will take on the Prime Minister's position. I said, sir, we will only have 53 including me. If I had gone to the other side, it will be 52. I questioned him about how it can be done. Back then he said he can take care of it. The Supreme Court order was given and the plan was ruined. There was chaos in Parliament. The whole world saw it. Bandula Gunawardena was waiting to be the finance minister. That is the truth. We were in the opposition. Everyone said Bandula will be the finance minister. I told Bandula not to be fooled. I told him he will never be the finance minister. Only a Rajapaksa will be the finance minister. You will be the Minister of Trade or something similar to that. Speaking at an event in Homagama, Mahinda Rajapaksa said, Kumara Velgama saved me, and he mentioned what I said about Bandula Gunawardena. I pointed out my statement saved him. S.B. Disanaike, another person, and I took part in a meeting at Dinesh Gunawardena's house. Soon after we lost, we planned what was going to happen next. However, those plans changed the next day as S.B. Disanaike had switched to the government. The three of us were wondering what happened to S.B. Disanaike. So at this point, move forward with a proper plan. We are playing with the future of our children. Remember that. Everyone who speaks here is the president. Since Sir has failed, everyone is saying that they are president. It's okay if Sajid Premadasa says that since he is closer to the presidency. So it's alright if he says it. Before becoming the president, we must remove the present president. If this presidency exists, we will create another madman. What happens when the next man surrounds himself with his family? What will happen to this nation? We will die after 10 years. Our time will end. We don't need to be presidents or prime ministers. But being politicians, we have a responsibility. We must create a national policy. We must formulate a proper constitution with the help of MP Hakim, Rishad and the other MPs from the Tamil National Alliance. We must formulate a constitution that is suitable to this day and age. We are all Sri Lankans. We are not outsiders. Let's create a national policy. We should also include Andrew Kumar Disanaike and his party, which is a good party. There is a huge party. Because of this vacuum, the JVP develops and moves forward. Minister Mahindananda, please give the urea now. Don't you have a family? Doesn't the president have a family?
නැත්තම් ඔයාටත් දරු පවුලක් ඉන්නව නේද? අපේ ජනාධිපතිතුමාටත් මම කියනවා. ඔයාටත් ඉන්නව නේද? මූදෙන් එතර එන වදින්නේ නැහැ කියන එක බොරුව. නැත්තම් කියයි මූදෙන් එතර ගියාට පස්සේ එන වදින්නේ නැහැ කිය. හැබැයි ලංකාවේ ඉන්නකොට එන වදිනවා. ඒක නිසා ජනාධිපතිතුමා මේ මිනිස්සු
Mr. President, when people ask for urea, please give them that. If you don't, the curse of the April 21st attacks will come back to haunt you.
ඒ ශාපය පිටිපස්සෙන් එනවයි කියන එක මම පැහැදිලිවම කියලා මම නවත්වනවා බොහොම.
Farmers are facing a crisis because of several reasons at present. This includes the lack of nano-nitrogen, the high cost of urea and the production of low-quality fertilizer. Farmers of Mahaoya in Ampara have cultivated corn in their fields. They sustained losses during the last harvesting season because of the absence of fertilizer and pesticides. Their woes have aggravated as Sena caterpillars have affected their crops.
අපි ඉල්ලන්නේ අපිට අවශ්‍ය පොහොර ටිකයි තෙල් ටිකයි ලබා දෙන්න. ගහන්න බෙහෙත් තියෙනවා. දැන් 8 ගුණයකින් විතර කලින් තිබුණට වඩා 8 ගුණයකින් විතර වැඩියෙන් තමයි මේ කළු කළු කාර්යෝ විකුණන්නේ. ඉතින් එහෙම ගන්න අපි ළඟ සල්ලි නැහැ. කරන්න බෑනේ. පොහොර ටිකක් නැත්තම් බෙහෙත් ටිකක් නැත්තම් කොහොමද ඔයගොල්ලෝ කරන්නේ? මම පැකට් 5ක ඊටවල දීලා පැකට් 5ට වියදම් කරපු සල්ලිවත් ගන්න බැරි වුණා.
Vegetable farmers of the Rotabawa village in Hinguragoda in Polonnaruwa say they have been forced to abandon their cultivations. They have cultivated vegetables including ridge gourd and pumpkin.
දැන් මිලක් තියෙන කාලේ මේ වගේ කාලේ මේ වගේ වෙච්චාම ඉතින් මොනවද කරන්නේ ගොවියා?
What is happening to the Chinese fertilizer crisis? The Colombo Commercial High Court's interim order to People's Bank to prevent payments for Chinese fertilizer company Qingdao Seawind Biotech has been extended until the 30th of this month. The two cases filed by Ceylon Fertilizer Company and Colombo Commercial Fertilizers Limited was taken up at the Colombo Commercial High Court by judges Pradeep Hettiarachchi and Priyantha Fernando. The local agent of the Chinese company filed written objections today. The Agriculture Ministry has decided to reject the fertilizer stock from the Chinese company after the National Plant Quarantine Service detected harmful bacteria twice. The two state-run fertilizer companies had gone to the Colombo Commercial High Court seeking an order to suspend payments for the letters of credit relating to the purchase. But the Hippospirit ship carrying 20,000 metric tons of Chinese organic fertilizer continues to remain in Sri Lankan waters.
The Joint Technicians Trade Union of the Department of Agriculture staged a protest today. They opposed the objection towards the tests conducted by the National Plant Quarantine Service on the Chinese fertilizer stock. The trade union members marched from the office of the National Plant Quarantine Service in Katunayaka along the airport road. The Chinese company has sent a letter of demand to the National Plant Quarantine Service challenging the tests it conducted on the fertilizer stock. The ship didn't reach Sri Lanka by following the legal procedure. Therefore, we wish to tell the government that they shouldn't pay compensation because of any reason. If anyone opens letters of credit unlawfully, ask them to pay it using their own money. As a country that has agreed to the International Plant Protection Convention, the Chinese company should have understood the regulations of their export country, regardless of who wants or rejects the stock. The Chinese company must also bear responsibility for this. If they had simply exported the stock without taking any of these factors into account, we won't agree to the tests by a third party. That is illegal. Don't allow entry to the ship in which the consignment is carrying harmful bacteria. Take the ship away. Take it to China or any other country. We are not a Chinese colony. The rulers might want to turn this country into a Chinese colony, but the officials at the Agriculture Department with technical expertise don't agree that the ship containing dirt from China should be unloaded in the country.
Meanwhile, a doubt has arisen regarding whether nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizer imported from India was sold at a higher price. Upon inquiries made by Newsfirst yesterday, the Agriculture Minister accepted that the rate at which the fertilizer was sold to Sri Lanka was higher than Indian market rates. Several views were expressed regarding the matter today.
ඊයේ මහින්දානන්ද අලුත්ගමගේ මැතිතුමා
Yesterday, Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage told the media that he is not involved in this purchase and that it is fraudulent. He admitted that fertilizer that cost $3 was purchased for $12.5. He also said that the amount will be reduced to $10. He added that he is not involved in this and that it is the fertilizer secretariat that is involved in this transaction. He noted that the information released by them is the ones that are announced. Who is the thief now? Is it Sachinda Rajapaksa? This must be revealed. I request the minister to expose the perpetrators who obtained commissions through this deal. When we said that there is a fraud here, they challenged us. It is okay if Minister Alutgamage abides by his master, but he should not hide perpetrators for the son of the elder brother of the master. Now what has happened to Mahindananda is that he has been made to be Sri Sangabodhi. We feel sorry for the minister as he is falling into trouble by covering up mistakes made by others.
මේ වෙලාවේ බොහොම කනගාටුවෙන් මතක් කරනවා.
මම පෙන්නලා දුන්නා ගොවි පවුල් දසලක්ෂයකට රුපියල් 8000 ගානේ ලබා.
I pointed out that the money looted by these rulers through nano-nitrogen fertilizer imports is enough to provide an 8,000 rupee payout to 1 million farming families. These allegations have been proven. The Criminal Investigations Department must question Mahindananda Alutgamage on the people behind this racket. This so-called account was opened on the 18th of October. This was the date on which the cabinet paper was submitted. The payment was made on the 19th. The account was closed after that. On behalf of the farmers, we are requesting that these fraudsters must be arrested regardless of their social status and whether they are ministers or state ministers. At the same time, we are requesting the IFFCO company to reveal to the country and the world the rate at which they sold the product. If the government doesn't intervene into this, then the people and the farmers must definitely rally against these corrupt transactions in the future.
මෙරටේ ගොවි ජනතාව දැන් පෙළගැසිය යුතු බව ඉතාම පැහැදිලි.
Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he has decided to repeal 3 controversial farm laws against which farmers have protested for more than 1 year. Thousands of farmers had camped at Delhi's border since last November and dozens died from heat, cold and COVID. Farmers say the laws will allow the entry of private players in farming and that will hurt their income. Today's surprise announcement marks a major U-turn as the government had not taken any initiative to talk to farmers in recent months. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in an address to the nation, coinciding with a major Sikh festival, that they have decided to withdraw all 3 of the agricultural laws.
Today I have come to tell you and the nation that we have decided to repeal the 3 farm laws. By the end of this month, we will complete the constitutional process in Parliament. Friends, today I am requesting the protesting farmers. Today is the pious day of Guru's birth anniversary. Please return home to your farms and to your families. Come, let's start a new beginning.
आइए एक नई शुरुआत करते हैं, नए सिरे से आगे बढ़ते हैं.
The legislation the farmers object to, introduced in September last year, deregulates the sector, allowing farmers to sell produce to buyers beyond government-regulated wholesale markets, where growers are assured of a minimum price. Small farmers say the changes make them vulnerable to competition from big businesses and that they could eventually lose price support for staples such as wheat and rice. Farmers in India celebrated the news that the controversial agricultural laws that sparked year-long protests are now withdrawn. Drivers honked their horns in the streets and men let off firecrackers in Ghazipur in Uttar Pradesh.
With that, let's quickly cross over to a commercial break. More news on the other side. Bellboy's got you covered. Download Bellboy today to get all your household appliance fixing and repairs done. Now available on Android and iOS.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Welcome back to the news. In your local news still, a tense situation arose when people visited the Consular Affairs Division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs today.
Minister of Foreign Affairs. මේක ඒල පෙට්ටි කරයක් නෙමෙයි. මේක ලස්සනට කරන්න ඕනේ. ඔබට දෙකක් කිව්ව නේද? ඔව්. අලින් දෙන්න එපා මිනිසුන්ට. ඔයාලා වාගේ අපි ජනතාව මේ රටේ. ඔව්. කතා කරන්න වැඩන්නේ.
The people who arrived at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed their dissatisfaction, pointing out the inefficiency of the officers of the Consular Affairs Division. The group later entered through the main entrance. While some of them obtained the required service, several others had to go home empty-handed. We came here calling 1919, the Government Information Centre. The day before yesterday, when I made an online appointment, I was informed to come here today to collect the certificates. When we came here, it was chaotic and unorganized. There was no communication. We can't stay in this country. We can't leave this country. There is no one to ask the date to do what we came here to do today. They told us to go upstairs, and when we did, they locked the doors. Police arrived at the location to control the situation.
Meanwhile, queues were seen outside gas stores in several areas today. Some people had to return home empty-handed despite standing in queues for hours. Litrogas had already increased its production capacity. There is no issue with Litrogas, but because the production of LAF's gas wasn't taking place as usual, there is a shortage of gas in the country. We will be able to address the gas shortage in a couple of weeks. We will take steps to resolve this problem by admitting that the people are facing issues regarding the rising cost of living and the shortage of goods. Based on global market trends and the forecast, we predict that the cost will reduce after January next year.
The Consumer Affairs Authority's former Executive Director Tushan Gunawardena has been summoned to the Criminal Investigation Department's Homicide Unit. He had exposed the controversial garlic scam recently. The summons have been issued based on certain remarks he had made to the media. In a letter, the Superintendent of the CID's Homicide Unit had informed Tushan Gunawardena to appear at the CID on the 22nd of this month. The investigations are being carried out based on a complaint by Minister Bandula Gunawardena.
Now, the one-off surcharge tax that was imposed to the budget recently has been taken up for discussion at various places. Views were expressed at the Mawata program on Sirasa TV regarding the surcharge tax on selected companies with high profits.
The decision to impose a tax on companies that are earning profits can be justified, but it doesn't give out a good message to the business community because we are not talking about individual businessmen. This concerns institutions that are service providers to the country. If we take the example of a bank, how many jobs are created by that? Their motivation to earn high-end profits in their year-end bonuses and bonus payments for the Sinhala New Year. The employees have this on their minds. When a decision like this is made, then employees will lose their motivation as they won't be able to achieve their hopes. They will also have concerns over investing in profitable ventures.
Motivation එක නැති වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ඉදිරියේදී මේ ලාභදායී ආයෝජනවල යෙදවීම පිළිබඳ උන්ට ප්‍රශ්නයක් මතුවෙනවා.
පුළුවන් තරම් අපේ දේශීය ආර්ථිකය
We must take maximum measures to protect businessmen who strengthen the local economy. They are the main contributors to increase employment. The private sector will become inefficient because of this tax structure. The budget doesn't have plans to increase jobs and encourage production in the private sector. The budget has been prepared by considering the private sector as an enemy.
බජට් එකේ නේ පෞද්ගලිකාංශය විරුද්ධවාදී විදිහට හිතනවා තමයි මේ බජට් එක හදලා තියෙන්නේ.
Some interesting views expressed there. Now, the budget debate is going on till next month. The second reading of the budget was taken up in Parliament today as well. The opposition raised concerns once again as the Minister of Finance was absent in the House today as well. A heated situation arose in Parliament today when protests and COVID-19 were the topics of discussion.
The Minister of Finance is not present today in Parliament. He was not there yesterday and only stayed for 5 minutes the day before. This is disgraceful to Parliament. There are so many important questions to be posed, but there is no one to answer them.
I think the chief opposition whip is diagnosed with something. A birthday party was organized at the official residence of the President in Anuradhapura, and it is reported that more than 2,000 people have attended the party. There was a luncheon in Anuradhapura this afternoon in line with the 2-year inauguration celebrations, and more than 2,000 people have been there at the event. The government is allowed to celebrate. If there is one law in this country, there cannot be one for the government and one for the opposition.
I did not say anything for you to panic. There is a notice pasted on the table which instructs you to wear a mask. MP Mano Ganeshan has tested positive now. There is a chance that MPs of the opposition might test positive as well. Therefore, I request to conduct a PCR test on them for the sake of our security.
According to you, the virus spreads when people engage in protests. But won't the virus spread when you organize birthday parties? Won't the virus spread further through the birthday party that was organized in Anuradhapura?
If we adhere to health guidelines, even at the time when we are in this house, it will be exemplary to the general public.
කතාව දෝලාවෙන් ගමන පයින් නෙමෙයි දැන් තමුන්නාසලා ගමන පස්ස පැත්තෙන්. ඒ තත්තර පස්ස බිම ඇනලා තමුන්නාසලා ඉන්නේ. මට ඇහුණා පෞගිය දවස්වල අර පැත්තේ ඉන්න අර කුලියට කහින ඇමති මේ දවස්වල කනස්සල්ලෙන් ඉන්නේ බෙල්ල කඩන්.
You don't walk the talk. You are in fact very desperate. I heard that the minister is upset these days. He is in trouble, but he has told the opposition to be creative. It is because of your creativity that you created 2 passports. You should sit down. Are you upset? Sit down. He has 2 birth certificates. The wife is older than him in one, and he is older than his wife in the other one. They panic when we say these things. These people who engage in cheap politics panic when we say things. He came into politics after working hard in politics through the JVP. That is how he developed himself. That is how he learned to wear trousers. He saw the greed, the bribes, and jumped over to the other side. This was creative. He then made houses, gave one to his brother, his relatives, and close in-laws. Following that, he attacked the government a little just for show and says that he does that to make the government better. He came for a budget vote like a spineless snail and raised his hand after making such a racket. You also tug your tail between your legs. You are nobody. He is struggling now. I also have to speak about the minister in charge of police. You spoke about the Millennium City problem. When the Millennium City situation happened, I was the commander of the army in Jaffna. There was a safe house in Colombo. There it was said that they had snipers. It's an utter lie. Army intelligence never used snipers. You don't need to bring RPGs and Claymore bombs to Colombo. That was done by the special forces. Storing weapons like that by a high-ranking official is a terrible idea. They attempted to blame it on the government. They used silly arguments like betraying war heroes to overthrow the government. But as an army official, I have to say that there was nothing illegal happening there for that arrest at Millennium City to take place.
Staying on COVID-19, the Church of Ceylon has requested the government to permit places of worship to remain open under certain health guidelines.
In a statement, the Church of Ceylon said the government has not allowed places of worship to remain open. It said this is despite permitting other places such as schools, clubs, gyms, restaurants and cinemas to remain open. The Church of Ceylon said this lacks a rational basis, is arbitrary, disproportionate and discriminatory. The statement read that the restrictions are illogical and unreasonable and violates the rights of people of many faiths. The Church of Ceylon noted that several letters to authorities seeking clarification have haven't received a response. It called on the government to permit religious worship subject to restrictions, including on social distancing and limited capacity.
Another phase of the Janata Vimukthi Peramuna Gamen Patangamu, or Let's Start with the Village movement, or the JVP, took place in Madirigiriya, Polonnaruwa.
Former MPs K.D. Lalkantha and Vasantha Samarasinghe met with the residents in Madirigiriya as part of today's program.
Rice is the staple food of all Sri Lankans. Therefore, this is not only a struggle of the farmers, but also a struggle of every Sri Lankan. The farmers don't have fertilizer to cultivate their lands. The production in the country has reduced. The harvest across the country has reduced. They say that farmers have been able to cultivate to a certain extent, but it is the harvest that is important. They will raise their eyebrows when a famine occurs. It is already in the making. People will not have anything to eat after the Maha season.
The examination of evidence for the prosecution in the case filed by the Attorney General against former Western Province Governor Asad Salih ended at the Colombo High Court today.
Appearing for the defendant, President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratne requested court to release Asad Salih without examining the evidence of the defence. Colombo High Court Judge Amal Ranaraja said the order on whether the defendant would be released without examining evidence would be issued on the 2nd of December. Asad Salih is facing charges under the Prevention of Terrorism Act and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights for some remarks he made at a media briefing on the 9th of March. He was arrested in Kolpiti on the 16th of March.
Still in news from the judiciary, the case against lawyer Hijaz Hizbullah is to be taken up again at the Puttalam High Court in January next year.
Lawyer Hijaz Hizbullah was arrested on the 14th of April last year. He was charged at the Puttalam High Court on the 18th of February this year for causing communal disharmony. This is under the Prevention of Terrorism Act and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The Negombo Prison Superintendent has been ordered to produce Hijaz Hizbullah in court on the 28th of January next year. The Criminal Investigations Department has requested for some documents from the defendants. The defendants have been ordered to submit the documents to court on the 7th of January next year.
The COVID-19 pandemic has posed challenges to the safety of children and their well-being. On World Day for the Prevention of Child Abuse, Newsfirst's Mariam Gunavijaya filed this report.
Schools in the country were shut down as Sri Lanka entered its first lockdown in March last year as a result of COVID-19. Now, as children remain stuck indoors, they often fell victim to abuse during this period. What do authorities and experts have to say on this? Let's take a look. The National Child Protection Authority is Sri Lanka's body for the welfare of children. It says 8,165 incidents of child abuse were reported in 2020. This has increased to 8,981 so far this year.
ගොඩාක් ළමයි මේ සයිබර් අවකාශය තුල ගනුදෙනු කරලා සමහර විට කොහොමද
Children have adapted themselves to living on cyberspace that they may have forgotten discipline when returning to schools once again. As the National Child Protection Authority, we will make sure that anyone above the age of 12 will be liable to the legal system. Investigations regarding child abuse are not only carried out by the police. We also receive reports regarding the matter from our regional child protection officers. Do not wait until your child is a victim of child abuse. If any child is feeling unsafe and is in need of moral support, you can contact the NCPA on the 1929 hotline.
1929 කියන ජාතික ළමා ආරක්ෂක අධිකාරිය උපකාරක සේවයට දැනුම්වත් කරන්නට පුළුවන්.
Child safety advocates say creating awareness about child abuse is vital in order to avoid children suffering from secondary victimization.
So what is the solution? An alternative care policy was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. This policy speaks of alternative ways of rehabilitating children who have suffered child abuse. This task force is yet to be appointed. Also, in the Children's and Young Persons Ordinance, one could get a fit persons order. A person who is a relative or not a relative can provide the environment for the development and growth of the child. Even this section is not implemented in the way that it should. So creating awareness and creativity on the part of lawyers and sensitization of judges is vital so that children will not suffer secondary victimization.
Activists say many incidents of child abuse have gone unreported due to continued remote learning. As the pandemic continues, the true scale of child abuse may continue to remain hidden.
Thank you, Mariam, for that report. The NCPA hotline is 1929. Many people in rural Sri Lanka are facing many problems at present. This is the same situation at the indigenous community's Buddhist Heritage Centre. Today, Gammadda stepped in to resolve this problem.
Many communities in rural locales in our country lead extremely difficult lives. The lack of assistance and entities to confess their woes to have compounded their strife further. A similar situation has befallen the Buddhist Heritage Centre of the indigenous community. Today, Gammadda stepped in to offer them relief.
In your sports update, Gianni Infantino, the president of football's top body FIFA, is on a two-day visit to the country.
FIFA President Gianni Infantino is attending the finals of the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa Trophy between Sri Lanka and Seychelles as the chief guest. The game is being played from 8:30 p.m. at the Racecourse Grounds in Colombo. Earlier in the day, the FIFA president met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa today. The meeting took place at the president's house in Anuradhapura. The FIFA president convened a media briefing today as well.
We have been speaking with the President, His Excellency, and His Excellency the Prime Minister this morning, and Sports Minister as well will join us tonight. We have been discussing about introducing a project that FIFA has launched very recently, which is called Football for Schools. It's a project that sits with the FIFA Foundation and brings football to all the schools in all the countries which, of course, are interested, and Sri Lanka is very much interested in that, to give the opportunity to all children in the country to experience football, not just to play football, but to be educated. We've been speaking as well about grassroots football, club football, more generally, about the structures, and of course about the infrastructure. And we are looking at proper, real football stadium for Sri Lanka, because a stadium today is not just a place where you play football. A stadium is an icon for a country. But we are here as well to give hope, real hope and opportunities to all the boys and girls, that they can see where they can play and that they can be the heroes of the country wearing the jersey of the national team.
Well, that's all the news we have for you this evening. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Chaturang Hapwarachi with our sign language interpreter, Tarak Nagendra. Take care and good night.